The Merkava tank is sometimes called the most survivable tank in the world. The reasons that are given usually include its active protection system, forward engine design, urban warfare-specific modifications, and thick armor. The Merkava was designed in the 1970s following the failure to purchase Chieftain tanks from the United Kingdom. Originally designed to duke it out with Soviet tanks in the desert surrounding Israel, the tank was laid out in a rather unorthodox manner compared to contemporary Western and Soviet tanks, featuring a design more akin to some infantry fighting vehicles. Instead of having the engine at the rear, the engine was moved in front of the crew compartment, with the turret placed further back on the chassis. The result was that the front armor could be more gradually sloped, and the crew could enter and exit the tank quickly from the rear. However, this comes with the drawback of having the engine more easily disabled, as any penetrating front hit will disable it. Israeli doctrine prioritizes the survivability of the crew in an engagement, so in the event of a disabling hit the crew will bail out rapidly through the rear hatch if the situation allows. On the other hand, a penetrating frontal hit on a Western tank will likely leave the tank still mobile. While the question of whether a tank crew would stay in a tank or not after a penetrating hit is up for a lot of debate, there are instances where mobility will increase the survivability of the crew, primarily in a fighting disengagement where the tank might be surrounded. In an engagement where an attack is succeeding, which, to be fair to the Israeli Defense Forces, is likely in most of their post-1970s conflicts, the Merkava's design makes sense, but for a European army expecting to hold against a Soviet or later a Russian advance, a mobility kill might be a far bigger deal. The other big issue is the storage of the ammunition in the Merkava. Ammo in the Merkava is stored in the crew compartment in flame-resistant plastic containers. While these containers can delay the cook-off of ammunition, Merkavas have suffered catastrophic failures when their ammunition load was hit. The Merkava Mk4 mitigates this by storing some ammo in the turret with blow-off panels, but this storage can only hold 10 rounds. This makes it far less survivable in event of an ammunition hit compared to bustle storage designs such as the M1 Abrams, K2 Black Panther, or Leclerc. However, the position of ammunition in the rear of the hull does make it hard to hit in a frontal engagement, and a hit to that area is only likely if the tank is engaged from the side aspect, a deadly situation for almost any tank. The Merkava also mitigates the risk of side shots with modular armor and active protection systems, though these are becoming standard on most modern tanks. The Merkava is protected by the Trophy Active Protection System, which uses a combination of turret-mounted sensors and explosively formed projectiles to shoot down enemy tank gun rounds, rockets and anti-tank guided missiles. Trophy is combat-proven, having saved several Merkava IV tanks and their crews from anti-tank weapons fielded by Hamas in 2014's Operation Protective Edge in the Gaza Strip. Israeli tankers are also set this year to experiment with Iron Vision, an augmented reality system designed to allow crews to see outside of their tank with a combination of VR goggles and distributed aperture system. An iconoclastic tank in the world of heavy armor, Merkava is also a proven combat winner. While not the tank for every army, it is the perfect main battle tank for the Israeli Defense Forces. As important as tanks are to Israel's security, The country has already started development of a successor to the Merkava IV well before it reaches obsolescence. As Israel's enemies already know, the Merkava will be a tough tank to beat. The brainchild of General Israel Tal, chief of the armored forces, the Merkava is Israel's first and only indigenous main battle tank. The tank was especially designed for Israeli tank doctrine. Low to the ground, with a powerful gun, the Merkava even had the engine placed in the front of the tank to provide protection to the crew. Combined with heavily sloped composite armor, Merkava made an excellent defensive tank, well suited to defending against Egyptian armored formations on the Sinai or Syrian forces on the Golan Heights. Early versions of the Merkava had the same British-designed 105mm main gun as the initial versions of the American M1 Abrams. Newer versions are armed with a locally produced 120mm smoothbore gun. The Merkava's main gun is accurate to at least 2,000 meters with high-explosive anti-tank and armored piercing rounds. Conventional rounds are supplemented by the Lahat missile. Capable of being fired from the barrel of the Merkava, the laser-guided Lahat can engage targets out to 9,000 meters. Merkava tanks were some of the first armored vehicles to be equipped with active protection systems against guided missiles. Israel has built just over 2,000 Merkavas in all versions, with 660 of the latest Mark IV builds.